Worst Valentine's Day? Easy. Went on a romantic date that turned into an accidental group hang because my date forgot to tell me their ex was also invited.
Oh, shoot.
Spent the night eating cold pasta, making awkward eye contact, and pretending this was all totally normal. Went home single, slightly traumatized, but with a great story. 10 out of 10 character development.
I'm Dr. Denim Slade, and today I'm reacting to some of the most crazy Valentine's Reddit stories to help you be able to cut through some of the garbage and know what healthy looks like.
So, this first story is from Roger. He says, I was with a girl who was absolutely in love with me, talking about marriage, pets, kids, etc. On our third Valentine's Day at dinner, I looked at her and it hit me. I realized I'd lost any feelings I had for her. Nice girl, cute, treated me great, would have made a fantastic wife. I just lost those feelings. Sucks to know it's not your fault the way you feel, but to realize this poor soul is going to be crushed. It's been 5 years and I still feel like for that.
Wrong.
Wrong? You don't?
No, not wrong. He doesn't feel like that. Wrong that you don't just fall out of love with somebody. Feelings don't work like that. This is such a misunderstanding and comes from this romanticized view that we have of relationships, that it either is there or not, and the chemistry is either there or not, and you're either in love or you're not. When in reality, relationships and love, feelings of love, come from doing the things that create and maintain those feelings. And in this situation, I would bet big money that, at least on his side, but probably mutually, they or he stopped doing the things that maintain feelings of connection and love in a relationship. One of the pieces of homework that I do to combat this is to do what I call 3 deposits and 1 filler every single day. And a deposit is defined, it's something that you do to deposit into the relationship every single day, to communicate to the other person that they're on your mind, that you care about them, that they're important to you. And so it's things like a text, hey, I hope you're having a good day, or making the bed, or doing the dishes, or a kiss, or a hug, or, stopping by and getting flowers, or a note. Things that where you are choosing, you're using your agency, you're choosing to prioritize the other person and prioritize their feelings. And then in addition to that, you need to be doing 1 relationship filler. And a filler is a positive shared experience. It is something that both people enjoy doing together. So if both people like going for bike rides and you go for a bike ride, that's a filler. If both people like playing a game, you play a game, that's a filler. Having sex, watching a show. If one person likes to go on bike rides and the other one doesn't, then that's a deposit for the person that doesn't like to go on the bike ride but is doing it. If you do those 4 things every single day, 3 deposits and 1 filler, it will help maintain the connection and the love that you have for somebody. Feelings of love are the result of doing the actions of love. Love is a verb, and when you do it, you get the fruit. The other exception to this that might have been going on in this situation is Roger might have been waiting way too long to assess whether or not this was the relationship that he wanted to be in. Sometimes we just kind of go along with things and go with the flow. And when somebody is treating us well, we don't stop to assess whether or not they're really the person that we want to be with. And then all of a sudden you can find yourself, 3 years down the road, 3 Valentine's days down the road, and then realizing, you know what? This isn't really the relationship that I want to be in. That's not because you had feelings and they just petered out. That's either because you didn't do the things to maintain those feelings, or you didn't assess the viability of that relationship early on.
So can you technically be in love with anyone if you're doing those deposits? Or because what you're saying is this guy, he maybe decided this isn't the relationship he wanted to be in, but can you be in a relationship with anyone then?
Really good question. Yeah, the way the brain works is that you can create associations and feelings. We love who we serve, and you can create feelings of connection with somebody by doing the things that create those connections. That doesn't mean that you should be in any relationship or that you should stay in any relationship. A huge part of creating and maintaining healthy relationships is doing the assessment work and filtering out either unhealthy or options that you don't want to have.
So this other guy, Chaos Motor, responded to Roger and said, "This happened to me once from the other side. We were sitting at her favorite restaurant for our 1-year anniversary, and she turns to me in the middle of dinner and says something like, 'Well, we gave it a good shot, didn't we? Huh? I mean, hasn't it been long enough? Isn't this over yet? A year is a long time. We made it a year. That's good enough, isn't it? You mean, I think we should break up now?' He said, 'I did not finish my entree.'"
Chaos Motor, I'm so sorry. So again, this certainly ties in and also highlights another important aspect of the equation. Effective and healthy dating is assessment. Successful dating is filtration. You want to dump however many people are necessary into the top of the funnel to have one healthy option of your choosing come out of the bottom. Healthy dating is in that top part of the funnel, aggressively and proactively assessing whether or not the other person has any deal breakers that you don't want in your relationship, or whether or not the pros and cons that come with their temperament and their attachment style are the things that you want. Successful dating is filtering somebody along through the funnel and then filtering out bad or unhealthy options. And so often people don't understand that and stay in relationships way longer than is healthy to do so, either because they don't want to hurt the other person's feelings or because they're not assessing well. This can go sideways in lots of different ways, but that's usually when something like that happens, that's what hasn't happened, is there hasn't been effective and timely assessment and filtration going on. The other thing that this kind of screams is attachment style. So often somebody with an avoidant attachment style doesn't do the things or allow a relationship to progress along in healthy ways. The avoidant brain doesn't trust relationships and doesn't trust that they're going to matter and be safe in relationships. And so avoidant people with an avoidant blueprint, cycle through relationships much more quickly, and relationships stall out because their emotional reaction to getting close to somebody is to start to feel smothered. And then their brain starts to look for reasons and excuses to create space. Relationships with avoidant people frequently just kind of peter out and dwindle into lack of connection because they're not doing the things to allow the relationship to progress along.
So this person said, "I had been dating this guy for almost a year, and this was the first Valentine's Day where I wasn't single. He went to a different college, and I lived about 2 hours away from me. I was planning on driving out there on Valentine's Day so we could spend the day together. He came out to visit me the weekend before I got violently ill. I spent the whole weekend throwing up, and when I finally went to the hospital Saturday night, I had diabetic ketoacidosis. I spent the rest of the weekend plus some of the week in the hospital. After I him out on the phone, he didn't want to drive to Seattle to see me because he was afraid of driving in the city, and it was a pain in the for him. I was released the day before Valentine's Day, and he still expected me to drive out, especially since I was missing school and work because I could barely walk without passing out. I needed time to recover. We ended up getting into this huge fight because he was being a selfish. I'm still bitter about it 3 years later."
What a dodged bullet. That is such good data, and probably data that should have been assessed months before this. Your primary attachment relationship is the only relationship in your life where it is healthy to expect to be number one. And a secure base is established and maintained through very high levels of access to the attachment figure and sensitivity from the attachment figure, particularly during attachment moments. By definition, a secure base is established and maintained by access, which is defined as when I need you, I have access to you. You make yourself available to me. And when I need you, you respond sensitively to my need. And that is the only relationship where it is absolutely healthy to expect to be number one, and to expect to consistently, and I'm talking like a level of 85% is what the research shows. 85% of the time that you're in need, your primary attachment figure should make themselves available to you and be sensitive to you during those moments. And so, man, you are so lucky. This person is so lucky to get out of that relationship and not end up 5 years later or 10 years later and a couple of kids later, and a mortgage later and all those things, then finding out that he was unwilling to show up for her and to provide what he should have been healthfully providing. That was a huge attachment moment. And those are the moments when we're most vulnerable and when it's most important to have the important people in our lives show up for us.
This is from Foothills Girl. We'd been palling around for a few weeks. Valentine's Day was our first date. He knew I hated techno music. If he was ever playing it, I'd ask for it to be changed. It really triggered my sound sensitivities. He pulls out his phone to show me a song he wrote for me, claims he stayed up all night. It was some 12-minute long YouTube song that was like 6 months old with 500 views. It was terrible. I thought it was a joke. He ended up screaming at me in public and telling me how horrible it was for not appreciating his gift just because it wasn't expensive. Like, dude, a fistful of lies and less than zero thought is not a gift.
That is really actually hard to understand. There's a lot going on in that very brief paragraph there. From the lies, I mean, if he's saying that he spent a lot of time coming up with this himself and it was actually something that somebody else produced and was not the effort that he put in, then that's a huge red flag in and of itself. This also gets at another kind of important Valentine's Day kind of thing, which is gifts in general. I've been married for 31 years, and I find myself, a few days away from Valentine's Day here, and still, wondering what I want to do for my wife for Valentine's Day. It's kind of important to understand here that love language comes into play here. Some people like to be surprised. Some people don't. Some people like to use it as like a time to get what they want. You can be too critical of somebody's effort, and just like, oh, he just got flowers and chocolates. He didn't put any effort in, and which gets into mind reading. The real important thing here is intent. So often we focus in on the behavior and we miss out on the important variable of intent, or we assign meaning to the behavior, assuming we know where the person was coming from. And we can really end up hurting somebody's feelings both ways in those assumptions. So it's important to look to what somebody's trying to accomplish. I might, my 5-year-old kid might draw me a picture that is a stick picture, but there might be a ton of love that goes into that. If my 16-year-old drew me the same picture, then it would have a very different meaning, right? I would interpret that as, oh, he didn't even try or whatever. But my 5-year-old, I might think, oh man, they really tried, You really have to look at the intent and try to give people the benefit of the doubt. It's a vulnerable thing to give a gift. And when you worry that you're going to give a gift and it's not going to be responded well to, a lot of times that can hold somebody back from like the vulnerable act of thinking about what you might want, or thinking about what would be meaningful, because they don't want the aftermath of their gift not being good enough. There's also an interesting temperament variable here that I've seen a lot in my research on temperament, and in my C.O.R.E temperament theory of personality. One of the temperaments in our society, I call an E, and E stands for exactness and excellence. And E's are motivated by doing things the right way and by perfecting things. And E's think through things thoroughly and settle on the right way to do things, what they think is the right way. And once they settle on something, they have a lot of confidence in their conclusions that they draw. And it can be really difficult to buy gifts for E's, for the perfectors in our lives, because in their minds, there's an ideal calendar, or in their minds, like a shirt, there's an ideal color or an ideal brand or an ideal, not any flower will do. There's like a specific flower that's the right flower. And so oftentimes when people are buying gifts for For E's, it can feel like the gift is never good enough. And so if you're in a relationship with an E, it can be really important to ask them, what would you like, or what would be the idea? I want you to know that I love you. I want you to know that you're on my mind. I want to put the effort in a way that will communicate what I'm trying to communicate, which is that I love you and you matter to me. What would do that? And if you are an E and you want a specific thing, it's a great idea to let your partner know beforehand what it is that would work for you. My mom is an E, and I learned way, way many years ago that the very best gift for her is money, because then she can go and get the right gift, or the gift that she wants. And so temperament is a really important piece of managing this in a healthy way also.
Worst Valentine's Day? Easy. Went on a romantic date that turned into an accidental group hang because my date forgot to tell me their ex was also invited.
Oh, shoot.
Spent the night eating cold pasta, making awkward eye contact, and pretending this was all totally normal. Went home single, slightly traumatized, but with a great story. 10 out of 10 character development.
What a great interpretation of that. Yeah, super. Again, what is healthy dating? Healthy dating is assessment. What is successful dating? Successful dating is filtration. Sounds like she handled this really well, in that she used this as a really important data point for assessment, and effectively filtered him out in that very night, filtered him out. That is successful dating. So often we think that we have failed in dating when a relationship fails. That's not so. You only want to end up with one partner. You don't want to end up with 3 or 4 spouses. You want to filter out all of the unhealthy options so that you can end up with the person that you want to be with. These are some really great stories. Valentine's Day can be such a challenging thing to navigate in a healthy way. And these are great representations of some of the challenges that exist. Just know that being in a healthy relationship is such a wonderful thing. Being in a place where you feel valued and where you feel emotionally safe is so important for us as human beings. There's so much research that shows how much better off we are physically, emotionally, spiritually when we're in a healthy relationship. And it is worth it. Communicate your expectations to your partner. It's totally okay to expect and to get to be number one on this Valentine's Day. And if you're in a relationship that you ought to be getting out of, filter them out. We have tons of resources. If you want to understand more about your temperament, take the free core assessment at whatsmycore.com. If you want to learn how to set up and maintain a healthy relationship, I have classes. I have a Core Advantage program. I have all kinds of resources to help you navigate this in a successful way. So many people feel powerless in their ability to establish and maintain healthy relationships, and we have tons of science on it. There's so much noise and so much confusion out there, but the good news is that human development and family science is a science. We know what it takes, and if you'll do the work to figure out what it takes, and then you'll practice and get good at it, you can absolutely end up in the relationship that you want.